one of the things that my mom told me that I'll always remember is this is a general statement, but it takes you a year to learn the job and a year to get good at it. Yeah. So on a 2-year time horizon, you're like, okay, I'm in this thing for 2 years regardless, because I ain't even going to be good at it until 2 years from now. Right. And so you have to withstand like crappy scenarios and working late. For the first couple of years of my career, I was in the office until 8 p.m. 3 or 4 days a week, regularly getting my ass kicked because I didn't know what I was doing. But I needed those experiences so that I could get here and speak to you, speak to your audience, and do the work that I'm doing now, and not necessarily feel like I'm not showing up in a way that's inauthentic. Like, you get what you get because I've done this 1,000 times. And it's through those reps that allows me to now have fun with it. Kind of to your point, like, yeah, it's a hobby. It's kind of a hobby because it doesn't feel like work because I've just spent so much time perfecting it and getting better at it.
Yeah. And also too, what makes it feel like a hobby, or actually, because I've thought about this like quite a bit. I almost feel like I'm in like an ivory tower, like the analogy that like used to be, I guess it's still kind of apt for academics, like who have tenure, to where, because I get to just sit in the data, like the business runs, and it's not lost on me that like how amazing it is that every day I come back and the business is still there, having lost a business, over the last year and a half. So like, I don't feel this like dread of like, I have to like hold everything together. I just get to have fun. There's really like low responsibility in this role compared to what I have been doing. And yeah, I get to innovate. I get to play around. I get to explore. And it's just low risk. But also too, to that point about the reality of the finances, my finances are very, very stable. Plus I'm living off like 40% of what I'm taking home right now, which some of that is the job pays pretty well and the passive income stream is good. But also too, like me and my girlfriend lived together in an apartment her uncle bought back in 2017. The rent's $470 a month because we're just paying the mortgage on it. So like, and then we're mostly cooking at home. So like my cost of living at 35 is probably lower than it was when I was 26, 25. So like a lot of it is kind of the work that I've done, which I guess that's the question I have for like therapists is like, what does that even mean? Do the work.
Well, what do you think it means? I mean,
do the work. I mean, it feels vague as hell to me. It's like, cause I think I've talked about this on the podcast. I did transitioning from shutting down my business to getting the job. While I was applying for jobs, I did 6 weeks of outpatient dialectical behavior therapy where I did confront like a lot of really it was like I wasn't sleeping well because I was so stressed. I was so stressed because I was constantly taking so many like huge risks. And I was just working all the time. And I was very reactive to where now I feel like very rooted and grounded. And then something might come, but it's just like, like I can just like brush it off in a way that, when you're stretched thin, any type of like small hindrance might break you, So I guess to get to your question about what is the work, is it just setting up your life so that you're happier or more fulfilled? I don't know what that means. I still kind of struggle with like, what is, because they always say, do the work. And that's like a thing in AA too, right? Do the work. Yeah. Is it just like facing your demons? Is it all of that?
Well, so you're kind of, if you listen to yourself, you're kind of answering your own question because you recognized, or at least it seems like at some point in your life, you recognized that you were being stretched thin enough so that you were able to take action in a way that I think most people struggle to be courageous to do so. And you deserve a lot of credit because that's a really courageous step forward. That inherently, I think, is doing the work for sure to some extent because you recognize you have an internal sense of what's going on for you. You have an awareness that your life is not headed in a direction that's sustainable and something must change. Now, you just so happen to have the wherewithal and the expertise, let's say, or the competency to point yourself in the direction of DBT. And some people may or may not get that step right, but it's the internal recognition that this is not sustainable that I think is the starting point. It all starts with that kind of awareness. Then when you take that step, which is an extraordinarily courageous step, then when you're there, you're doing it with a level of intention. What in your case, it sounds like your intention was to become more balanced, more grounded, less stressed as a result. And then as a consequence, get your sleep in order, get your stress in order, get your diet in order, get your physical fitness in order, get your relationship in order. It all sort of stems down from that initial appraisal of like, things are not going well, right? And so when I think we talk about doing the work, it both means, are you willing to be attuned to oneself enough so that you can make a change if you needed to? And are you intellectually honest with yourself enough to do the appraisal, do the auditing, and then make the changes? I think a lot of people get really comfortable in the shit.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the example I give is like, I don't really like doing laundry. So I get really accustomed to having like messy drawers. Just like my drawers are never, I don't really fold my clothes. I just put them in there and I just get accustomed to it. And my wife comes in there like, how can you live that way? Right. And so if she was my therapist, she would say, do the work, which is if you want something to change, you actually have to fold your laundry. You have to do it. Now, that's a relatively innocuous example because my laundry is not impacting my functioning. This maybe has a little wrinkle in it, but I think we're good, right? So at the end of the day, it's like, is it impacting your functioning to the extent that you want to change it? And are you able to be courageous enough in your auditing of oneself to realize that this is not sustainable and it's worth some attention? You mentioned something that's really, really important that I want to highlight. It's a really brave step for people who are, I think, particularly ambitious, who recognize that burning the candle at both ends isn't actually a strategy for success. And that taking care of your sleep, taking care of your mental wellness, taking care of your relationships, that is the fuel which allows you to be productive in the first place. Right. And so it would be similar to, I work a lot with students. And sometimes I have students come up to me, high school students, college students, taking a lot of AP classes or high level performers in academia, or sometimes not even that. And they'll be like, oh, I have this massive test. I got to stay up late and study. And I think to myself, there's diminishing returns at a certain point, right? Once you get past, let's say, making it up 12 a.m., you're gassed. You don't have the intellectual capacity at that point to even internalize any of your learning anyway. So is it actually smarter to go to bed earlier and then wake up earlier, a little bit more rested because you got some sleep? You put the work aside. You said anything that I'm going to be doing right now is actually not going to be helping me. It's going to be hurting me. I get the rest that I need, which then allows me to fuel my body with a healthy breakfast, study, and go to work. Right. And it seems counterintuitive. You're like, well, wait a second. The test is literally tomorrow. I need to study. Yeah, but you're not actually learning at that point, right?
You're just self-soothing.
Yeah. Well, you feel like you're being productive, but you're not, right?
It's right. It's like you have anxiety about the test. So you're like, oh, if I stay up till 3, then I get 3 extra hours. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like talking to it literally.